Welcome to Ingredient Insiders. I'm John Magazzino.
And I'm Andrea Parkins. Thanks for watching this clip from our interview with Chef Joe Cooper. For the full episode, find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Links in the description below.
I lived in Venice. I worked at the Hotel Bauer, which is off of Piazza San Marco, and I worked for this incredible chef who had worked at some of the best restaurants in Italy. He worked at Enoteca Pinchiori and a bunch of really amazing restaurants throughout Italy. And Venice was like nothing I had ever seen. Mm-hmm. You know, city on the water.
On water, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll never forget, the first time I woke up and I experienced Acqua Alta. Mm-hmm. I went downstairs and nobody lives on the ground floor in Venice, right? And Piazza San Marco is at the lowest point in the city. So I walk down the stairs and I see the entire first floor of my building is flooded. I'm like, what do I do?
Swim.
Yeah, right. Swim to the hotel? I guess I will. So I went back up and I said, well, what am I going to do? So I didn't have knee-high boots. I had just moved to Venice, and I grabbed a couple of garbage bags and pulled them up above my knees and
just walked through.
Waddled my way over to the hotel.
Do you have a picture of this?
I do not have a picture. I
wish we did.
I wish. They didn't have iPhones at the time. Mm-mm. This was, I think at the time I had a Nokia.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have like a Razor, like flip phone?
Yeah. But I mean, it was incredible, working at this restaurant hotel on the Grand Canal. And, you get your deliveries and a boat pulls up on the Grand Canal at the dock for the hotel. And they're offloading this amazing seafood from the Adriatic Sea, stuff that you've never seen anywhere in the world.
Right. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Did you at that point get the seafood bug?
I mean, it was earlier before that. It was, working in
Paris?
Working in Paris, working in Montpellier, and just, really being able to experience this incredible seafood that I had never really, listen, growing up, I grew up in Maryland, so I had crabs, and we'd go to the crab house and pound them out, and super fun. And we'd go to the Eastern Shore and trap crabs on the bay and do all that. And I grew up fishing from a very young age. My grandfather taught me how to fish. I mean, I must have been 4 or 5 years old tops when I went out on a boat the first time, and he taught me how to rig a line and do everything when I was quite young. And we'd go fishing a bunch of times, like whenever I'd see him. I mean, he split his time between New York and Florida, or he'd come up to DC and spend time. And every time I'd see him, all right, we're getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're heading out to the water. Yeah. We're catching some fish.
So seafood's like in your blood.
It's in my blood. I dream of the ocean.
Ugh. One of the questions that's been in my head, was there a real drastic difference in cooking in France than in Italy?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
What were the things, did you feel like when you walked into cooking in Italy, like you're like, oh, I know my stuff, and then it was completely different? Like chefs treated you differently, or technique, or? I
mean, I think all of the above. I think the approach is vastly different. Yeah. And then the ways in which, they treat the products, and I mean, French and Italian cuisine are
very different.
Are very different. And, obviously they lend into each other, right? And they share flavors and they share techniques. And I appreciate both cuisines.
Absolutely.
For what they both offer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out there and offend anybody who prefers French.
We love the French and the Italian equally on Ingredient Insiders.
Both.
So you're in Venice. How long are you there?
I lived in Venice for a little over a year. And I got an opportunity to work in Rimini for a season, which was awesome, on the Adriatic Sea. And then I got an opportunity to work in Florence for a short time. I did have to come back for some family stuff, and that time it was just the right time for me to come home. But I did work at the Savoy Hotel for about 6 months in Florence before I came home to attend to some family stuff. And then I was back home in DC for not even a week, and I got a call from the executive chef of the Plaza Hotel, and he said, "Hey, I got your resume from one of your chefs in Europe. you come highly recommended. Would you like to come up to New York? And I said, sure. So came up to New York and did a cooking audition, and he hired me on the spot. And he said, when can you start? And I said, well, I got to get some stuff from my folks' house. I can start next week, but I don't have a place to live. He said, well, I tell you what, you can sleep in the steward's office until you find a place to live. I said, all right, sure.
You're like, can't you just put me up at the Plaza?
Right. Well, I mean, my first address in New York was at the Plaza Hotel. I mean, in a way, I slept in the steward's office.
Right.
But it could be worse.
Hey,
yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. And so I worked at the Plaza Hotel for a bit. And I had always dreamed of working at Le Cirque forever, since I really, grew an appreciation for fine dining in the United States and the legacy and the tradition and the, heralded history of Le Cirque and the great chefs that worked there, that came up there. I got an opportunity to work at Le Cirque, and I did a cooking audition and got a job there. And I worked there up until they closed. This was when they were at the New York Palace, Le Cirque 2000.
Yep.
And it was incredible. And I mean, a lot of the chefs that I worked with there are, up and coming great chefs, known chefs in the industry now. And I mean, just the expectation of excellence out of that kitchen, and balanced with the sheer volume that we would go through on a nightly basis was incredible. And then also just the incredible ingredients, and it was a great experience.
Absolutely. Do you feel like today? I mean, so you're talking that was in like early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
And now we're talking 25 years later. Do you feel like there is a shift in the talent now, the culinary talent, than when you were cooking at Le Cirque?
Absolutely. I mean, it's incredible to see all these new up and coming chefs, and just the greater appreciation and understanding of the flavors and ingredients that are available. Yeah. And I mean, it's incredible to work for Chef's Warehouse, where we really provide the best ingredients to the best chefs in the world, which is amazing. And I feel so lucky that Down East is a subsidiary of Chef's Warehouse, and we have those resources and the insights and technologies to really bring the business to the next level, to really provide the very best seafood to the best kitchens in the world.
What was that decision like for you to shift from, your pedigree is outstanding. I mean, I'm sitting here like in kind of shocked that you've worked at so many incredible places and as successful as you were. What was the shift like to say, I want to really invest the next part of my career into seafood and, run one of the best, if not the best, seafood companies in New York City?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never really considered getting into food distribution, and I mean, it just kind of happened by chance. I met Stephen Wills of Harry Wills, and he said, listen, I think you'd really be a natural at this. Yeah. And it's not something that I had ever considered. And he said, I have an opportunity. We work with a company out in the Hamptons, and they are a little, they're struggling. If you're able to help them improve their sales over the summer, and by the way, they can put you up in the Hamptons. I said, wow, I can live.
You live like very large. The Plaza, Hamptons. I mean, lucky you.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you don't take advantage of the opportunities
100%. Have to say yes sometimes.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and I said, listen, worst case, this doesn't work out, and I can go back to cooking. I can do something else.
Sure.
But when am I going to ever have an opportunity to live out in the Hamptons for the summer for free? I mean, I have to work, but Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Ingredient Insiders.
You can find the products we discussed on today's episode at chefswarehouse.com or your favorite specialty retailer.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram @Ingredient Insiders and Chef's Warehouse @Where Chefs Shop.